Hey everybody, have you ever wondered, when we are out there flying on an IFR flight plan, do I just pick any old altitude I like? And do I just fly anywhere in any direction that I desire? Well, remember, we're on an IFR flight plan. We might be IMC, and so the answer is no. There are specific airways defined for us to fly and specific IFR altitudes. That's right, you're back at the Epic Flight Academy. This is our instrument rating course. I'm Mike Thompson, your host, and you know, I think there's 3 things to be successful in this course. Do you remember what those keys are? I do. Key number 1 is you are enrolled in Epic's online course for the instrument rating and studying this content there. Number 2, you're watching these videos. Man, are we glad you're here. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And number 3, as always, be sure to review all of this content one-on-one with your flight instructor. Today we are going to talk about these different altitudes and airways as they pertain to IFR. And guess what? We have a guest speaker to come and join us. I want to introduce you to Mr. Shane Williams. Shane is the Director of Flight Operations here at the Epic Flight Academy. Hey, Shane.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
I'm great. Can you help us out with altitudes and airways?
I think I can. I can show you guys
Excellent.
a thing or two about airways and altitudes. Let's dive right into it. So looking at this slide, this is our Low Enroute Chart. The highest altitude on this Low Enroute Chart is 17,999 feet. Above that, 18,000, it starts a different chart, which we'll cover here in just a minute. Looking at this slide, you guys can see there are some black lines and some blue lines, right? The black line is known as a Victor airway. The blue line, that's reference to a Tango route or a Tango airway. That is a GPS route that we use. Moving forward, there's also routes that we use to go across the seas and the oceans, right? Those start to become transatlantic routes. When you look at the slide there, you can see rather than a Victor airway or a blue airway, you see a black Yankee airway. International routes, a lot of times, are distinguished by different letters, such as Yankee. The low altitude chart, like we mentioned, is 17,999 or below. When you get to the flight levels at 18,000 feet, it switches to the high en route chart. Looking at the high en route chart, you can see some of the symbology has changed. The blue Tango routes have switched to Quebec routes. The black Victor airways have switched to black jet routes or jet airways that we use in the sky for the bigger airplanes. Looking at this slide, you guys can see there's some different symbology as well. Those brown lines, those are referencing military training route. You got it. Those are the routes that the military uses to also practice their maneuvers. There's 2 important things to note there. There's an IR and there's a VR. The IR route is an instrument route. The VR is a visual route, meaning those military pilots are actually looking outside. You'll also notice there's a line there that's squiggled out. That is an unusable route segment due to maintenance or some other technicality that the FAA is currently working on. So that route cannot be used for flying in the sky. Let's get into some of these altitudes that Mike was talking about. The first altitude that we want to cover, as you guys can see, it's highlighted in yellow, right? That is known as the minimum en route altitude. What exactly does that mean? Well, that is the lowest published altitude between radio fixes that will assure acceptable navigation signal coverage, and it meets obstacle clearance requirements between those 2 fixes. The MOCA, or the minimum obstruction clearance altitude, again, they are highlighted in yellow, but these also have a little asterisk or a star next to them. The MOCA is the lowest published altitude in effect between radio fixes on VOR airways, off-airway routes, or other segments which meets obstacle clearance for that segment. But there's a key here. It's only within 22 nautical miles of that fix. Next, the MRA, or the minimum reception altitude, right? So MRAs are for when you're flying on an airway and you're going to use another nav aid facility to help determine a fixed location on that airway. So this is an altitude that you must be at or above in order to receive that second signal from a different navigation aid. Next, we have the minimum crossing altitude. Now these are really cool because on the en-route chart, you'll notice there's a little X that's inside of a flag, and that will denote a minimum crossing altitude. Now, in this slideshow, you can see Victor 531, if you are traveling southeast, right, you must be at 6,000 feet or higher when you cross that fix. The maximum authorized altitude. So on some of the charts, you'll notice there's an MAA. This is the highest altitude that you can use on that route. ATC will not approve anything higher than that route. Next, we get into something known as the OROCA, or the Off-Route Obstruction Clearance Altitude. Now, when you guys look at the slideshow, you'll see there's a quadrangle, or there's a box that is made with the latitude and longitude lines on the sectional, or on the en-route chart, excuse me. There's a number that's in brown, 12,500, right? So that 12,500, that is going to guarantee if you are not on one of these airways, either 1,000 foot or 2,000 foot of separation with the highest obstacle. And that also just depends whether or not you're in a mountainous area or a non-mountainous area. Next, some distances, right? Let's get into some of these distances. How do I know how far away I am? Well, looking at our slideshow, you can see there the 1.5 that's highlighted in between two waypoints. That is telling you the distance, 15 miles, between the two. If you look just to the right, you'll see a 33 that's kind of encased in a letter D symbol. That is telling you that you are 33 miles from the VOR, or the navigational aid, to that fix. Now, if we keep moving just to the right, you'll also see there's a 70 that's encased in a box. That 70 is telling you the total distance between one VOR and the next VOR. The last thing, right? The Low Enroute Chart also helps us as pilots. When do we switch these navigational aid frequencies? On some airways, you'll notice there's a crossover point or a changeover point. Depending on what direction you're going, it will tell you at what mile that you need to switch over. Now, the key here, not all airways are going to have these changeover points. If they do not, you simply will take the total distance, cut it in half, and you will switch at the halfway point to the next navigational aid.
Wow, so Shane, there's a little bit more to altitudes and airways than maybe we first thought.
There sure is, Mike. There's a lot.
Wow, thanks a lot for being here. Would you like to join me in our traditional sign-off?
I would.
Okay. Well, folks, that's it for Airways and Altitudes. Join us next time.